Okay, well, good afternoon. My name is Ian Parkinson. I'm the sheriff of San Luis Obispo County. Joining me today are Chief Ty Lewis of the Paso Robles Police Department. I have Chief L.D. Maples from the California Highway Patrol, and FBI Assistant Special Agent in Charge, Akil Davis, out of the LA office. This morning, we had an unprovoked attack on local law enforcement, and in my opinion, an act of a coward. To relate the story this morning, one of my sheriff's deputies who was responding to the aid of the Paso Robles Police Department was shot in the face by a suspect that was laying in ambush at the police department in downtown Paso Robles. The wounded deputy was flown to a trauma center out of the county for his advanced medical treatment. He's in serious but stable condition. We're praying for his recovery. Our thoughts are with his family and with the families of all local law enforcement officers in this county. The events of today's tragedy began at approximately 3:09 a.m. this morning when staff at the Paso Robles Police Department inside the building began hearing and observed through cameras firing at their police station. They immediately responded out to the building and requested the assistance of local law enforcement, including the San Luis Sheriff's Office, the California Highway Patrol, and the Atascadero Police Department. The suspect began firing at police cars as they entered the downtown area where the police building is located. Two of my deputies, who were driving in a two-person unit, arrived on scene at approximately 4 o'clock a.m. to assist the other officers that were being fired upon. At approximately 4:19 a.m., the two deputies were searching the area in which the shooter was last seen. They were out of their vehicle and came under fire. And as I stated, one of the deputies was shot in the head. The second deputy with him began defending his partner and returned fire to the shooter and protecting his downed officer. The deputy grabbed the wounded partner and removed him from a position of safety. Fortunately, members of the Paso Robles Fire Department arrived on scene, immediately went to his aid, got him removed, and ultimately transported to a local hospital. Officers have completed the search of the downtown area for the suspect. We have sheriff's detectives assisted by other local detectives. The sheriff's detectives are about over 20 to 25 detectives working on this right now. We have been assisted by the FBI, as I stated. I received a call from Sacramento from the California Department of Justice. They're providing aid. I have Cal OES assisting, all local law enforcement agencies assisting as well. Witnesses have described the suspect in this case as a Hispanic male adult, about 5 feet 8 inches tall, 150 to 160 pounds, with dark curly hair and a beard. We will be distributing photos of the suspect when we're done for you. This suspect obviously is considered armed and dangerous, and we do not want the public approaching him. We simply want them to notify us. During the search, officers were notified of a man down near the Paso Robles train station, and that was very near where the shooting had occurred. Officers found the deceased body of a 58-year-old male. Coroner detectives determined that this was a victim of homicide. The homicide investigation is being conducted by the Paso Robles Police Department, and I'm going to now turn it over to Chief Lewis to talk about the homicide.
Thank you, Sheriff. Yes, so as the Sheriff recapped with everybody here, we are in the middle of a homicide investigation with this. We do believe it's linked to our ambush active shooter situation that we had at the police department today. We were notified by some local business owners that there was a dead body possibly on the train tracks, the platform. Our detectives did respond out there along with the officers, or excuse me, the deputies from the Sheriff's Department, and we determined that what appears to be possibly a transient from the area that had been camping out overnight was likely shot at close range to the back of the head, one shot. The Sheriff's Department Coroner's Office, my detectives, as well as the District Attorney's Office are currently investigating, and evidence collected at the scene links it to the likely suspect that will be distributing his photo. It's important to know that our downtown is still locked down as we continue to process the scene. There's at least 5 different locations that we're processing throughout downtown. There's been a lot of questions about a shelter-in-place order that's still been active most of the day. We've used not only the Sheriff's SED team, but also our regional SWAT team to clear the downtown area, and we feel pretty confident that the suspect is no longer in the area, so we'll be lifting that shelter-in-place order. However, we're requesting that our community members please stay away from the downtown area as we continue to process and collect evidence from the scene. With that, turn it back over to Sheriff Parkinson.
When we put out the photo, it's likely to produce many calls, so we have asked that if the public calls in with information to either contact the Paso Robles Police Department, the San Luis Sheriff's Office, or Crime Stoppers. And I'll remind people that Crime Stoppers can be done anonymously if you choose to do so, but that would be our desire to receive information that they might see as important. So with that, we're open to any questions that you might have.
Sheriff, could you give the one ABC News? Could you give the one phone number? What the one phone number that you would like people to call?
We can call 805-781-4550 or
805-237-6464.
I know that's not one, but those are both departments.
Sheriff, we'll start with ABC News. We're being told that law enforcement is looking into a potential link between these attacks here and an attack in Santa Cruz and also possibly in Oakland. Can you comment on that?
Well, we have seen nothing that links them per se, except the violence to unprovoked violence to law enforcement. So at this point in the investigation, we have not found anything that links them directly, but that with time it might tell.
And what can you tell us about the suspect?
Well, other than his description, we feel that this was an ambush, that he planned it. He intended for officers to come out of the police department and to assault them. The gunfight that occurred both at our deputies and the shots at the Highway Patrol and Paso Robles Police Department, the Atascadero Police Department, did not unfold in seconds, as you heard from my timeline. It occurred over a period of time, and it was obvious the suspect was intending to harm or kill law enforcement.
Any reason for why that suspect would want to try to hurt law enforcement? Any idea why he would want to ambush the police department?
Well, that's a good question, and once he's in custody, maybe we'll know the answer to that. Other than that's kind of been the general theme floating around the nation right now, this rise up anti-law enforcement coalition, it seems. And so all we can surmise at this point is that this was again an unprovoked attack on officers simply doing their job in the community. There was no event that caused this. There was no arrest intimate or a single event that caused this to happen that we have identified at this point.
And then with the homicide later on, any reason to believe that person was shot, or was there any altercation, anything between the shooter and the homeless person?
Well, I'm going to let the chief answer that.
So at this point, it appears that, for the lack of a better term, that it was unprovoked. We don't even know at this point if the victim knew that he was going to be attacked. It appears pre-planned, premeditated, and it was a single shot to the back of the head from what we can determine at this point.
What's the extent of the damage to police department property?
There's several bullet holes in the backside of our police building. We have our evidence room is located on the back side. Window shot out, door was shot out, shots fired into the brick siding of the police department as well.
And a call came in from a witness that somebody was shooting outside the police department, or your officers noticed?
One of our dispatchers was monitoring some of our security cameras and was able to observe a suspicious person walking around the building. And at that point, he started an attack on the police department.
How good of a shot on surveillance video were you able to get a suspect? Did he have a face covering or just, and have you been able to get anything else from other businesses downtown? I'm sure there's probably a lot of cameras out there.
Sure, the picture that we're going to release to the group today is probably the best picture that we have right now. We're still trying to collect as much evidence as we can, and as you can imagine, we have a vibrant downtown, and there's a lot of footage and video surveillance that we're going to be trying to collect that'll help us put together a case that will be prosecutable.
And do you know if he fled on foot or if there was a vehicle involved? Or?
That's all part of what we're trying to determine right now, so that information is still developing.
The sheriff mentioned there was a back and forth shooting between the suspect and members of law enforcement, or a member of law enforcement. Can you guys walk us through that? How long that took? How many members of law enforcement were firing? And did they hit? I mean, was he in a car? Did they hit his car? Was there anything that leads you to believe that he might have been injured?
The exchange was between my deputies and the suspect after they were shot. After his partner was shot, he returned fire. It was brief, the exchange of fire. As you can imagine, when an officer gets shot in the head and you need to rescue that officer and get him out of harm's way, you don't necessarily stand there and exchange fire very long. He was able to get him out behind the unit. You can see the center picture of their car in the intersection there. So that exchange was brief. The second exchange, or the other exchange, excuse me, between the suspect and the Highway Patrol, Atascadero and Paso was also brief. And at this point, no indication there was even an opportunity to return fire. The suspect was on the move, and which happens in these cases, unfortunately.
And with that in mind, especially considering that a non-member of law enforcement was also attacked here, what is your message to the public right now and heading into tonight?
Well, the message has and always will be that we want to keep the community safe, and we want to keep the peace. We do not want people taking things into their own hands. Obviously, people are scared when one of your local law enforcement officers gets shot and a police department is under attack. But our message is going to be that we're going to be the answer to that, other than that's kind of been the general theme floating around the nation right now, this rise up anti-law enforcement coalition, it seems. And so all we can surmise at this point is that this was again an unprovoked attack on officers simply doing their job in the community. There was no event that caused this. There was no arrest intimate or a single event that caused this to happen that we have identified at this point.
And then with the homicide later on, any reason to believe that person was shot, or was there any altercation, anything between the shooter and the homeless person?
Well, I'm going to let the chief answer that.
So at this point, it appears that, for lack of a better term, that it was unprovoked. We don't even know at this point if the victim knew that he was going to be attacked. It appears pre-planned, premeditated, and it was a single shot to the back of the head from what we can determine at this point.
What's the extent of the damage to police department property?
There's several bullet holes in the backside of our police building. We have our evidence room is located on the back side. Window shot out, door was shot out, shots fired into the brick siding of the police department as well.
And a
One of our dispatchers was monitoring some of our security cameras and was able to observe a suspicious person walking around the building. And at that point, he started an attack on the police department.
How good of a shot on surveillance video were you able to get a suspect? Did he have a face covering or just, and have you been able to get anything else from other businesses downtown? I'm sure there's probably a lot of cameras out there.
Sure, the picture that we're going to release to the group today is probably the best picture that we have right now. We're still trying to collect as much evidence as we can, and as you can imagine, we have a vibrant downtown, and there's a lot of footage and video surveillance that we're going to be trying to collect that'll help us put together a case that will be prosecutable.
And do you know if he fled on foot or if there was a vehicle involved? Or?
That's all part of what we're trying to determine right now, so that information is still developing.
The sheriff mentioned there was a back and forth shooting between the suspect and members of law enforcement, or a member of law enforcement. Can you guys walk us through that? How long that took? How many members of law enforcement were firing? And did they hit? I mean, was he in a car? Did they hit his car? Was there anything that leads you to believe that he might have been injured?
The exchange was between my deputies and the suspect after they were shot. After his partner was shot, he returned fire. It was brief, the exchange of fire. As you can imagine, when an officer gets shot in the head and you need to rescue that officer and get him out of harm's way, you don't necessarily stand there and exchange fire very long. He was able to get him out behind the unit. You can see the center picture of their car in the intersection there. So that exchange was brief. The second exchange, or the other exchange, excuse me, between the suspect and the Highway Patrol, Atascadero and Paso was also brief. And at this point, no indication there was even an opportunity to return fire. The suspect was on the move, and which happens in these cases, unfortunately.
And with that in mind, especially considering that a non-member of law enforcement was also attacked here, what is your message to the public right now and heading into tonight?
Well, the message has and always will be that we want to keep the community safe, and we want to keep the peace. We do not want people taking things into their own hands. Obviously, people are scared when one of your local law enforcement officers gets shot and a police department is under attack. But our message is going to be that we're going to be adding more police cars out on the street, both in the city and in the county, and try to ensure that we're doing everything we can to keep them safe. But keep in mind, this was a direct attack on law enforcement. And I think if you know this county, we have a very supportive county of law enforcement in general, but this is really upsetting a tremendous amount of people right now. And we hope that they won't turn it into an attack on what they believe caused this, but it's hard to ignore that. So we will continue to be the peacekeepers that are supposed to be, and remain professional, and try to keep people to keep their wits about them and not overreact.
Sheriff,
Sheriff, do you know what kind of weapon was used in the attack?
We do know what kind of weapon, but we're not releasing that right now.
Do you know how many shots were fired during the ambush and then the interchange with the deputy?
Before I answer that, the chief wanted to comment on that, one of the last questions. I want to give him an opportunity.
I do. The message that I want to get out is that right now, we're going to distribute this person's picture, and there's likely somebody out there that knows who he is, a family member, a friend, someone along those lines. Please encourage this person to turn himself in. There's no need for further bloodshed. There's no need for further violence in our community. And so I would encourage family members, friends, even if the suspect's hearing this, to turn himself in now. It's the right thing to do, and we need to end this.
Where is he from?
Chief,
Yes.
how long do you expect the downtown area to remain closed?
As long as it takes. We have a lot of evidence to collect down there, and I can't give you an answer to that. There's, You know, this is our #1 focus for the Sheriff's Department and the Police Department right now, and we're prepared to keep it closed as long as we have to make a good case to prepare for the District Attorney's Office and for court.
As long as it is closed, people should, business owners, particularly residents around the area, should shelter in place, so stay at home.
But I can tell you, because we had numerous locations of firing, there's numerous rounds that were fired.
Okay, can you also, do you know how many vehicles, police vehicles were shot?
I believe just one. At this point, I believe just one was hit. I don't know if our unit in this picture was actually hit, but I don't have that information yet. That as of when I left the scene, I've been there all morning since 4 o'clock. That vehicle was still at scene because we had not gotten to collect evidence yet, so it could have been hit as well.
It sounded like you mentioned some businesses were hit as well. Is that true?
Absolutely. We know businesses were hit. In that corridor downtown, if you know that area, those rounds went somewhere, so they had to have struck other businesses. So we have yet to determine exactly what businesses were hit.
Does the suspect have any criminal history?
We have not identified a name of a suspect at this point, so until we do so, we cannot answer that.
Sheriff, was the PD office the only department targeted? Because there was also a crime scene at DMV, and then I heard a grocery store may have been shot.
Well, the DMV was shot because the Highway Patrol and Paso Robles Police, that's where they were when they got shot. So yes, it did hit the DMV. That's where they were at the time. So the rounds went by the officers and struck that building.
So the only place he targeted was PD.
It was it was the PD to begin with, and then it was officers arriving on scene.
And then there were reports about another body found at the riverbed. Anything
Uh,
about that?
We have no information to support that at all.
Could you walk us through the 5 different crime scenes, so police station, DMV?
I
That's
can.
where the homicide was.
We have the homicide. We have down at Riverside and 10th, where this shooting occurred. We have the DMV, and then we have right down in the downtown quarter next to several of those restaurants and businesses. Those are the ones I'm well aware of. Those are the big ones.
Was the deputy driving as he was shot at?
No, both of the deputies were out of their car and searching for the suspect. When these deputies arrived and they were driving down Riverside, they could actually hear the gunfire and were searching for the shooter at the time. And they had stopped and actually gotten out of their vehicle, not seeing the suspect until they started taking fire.
Can you speak about the deputy that is in serious condition and how long he's been with the department and just talk about him?
I will release this part at this point, that the deputy has been with our agency for 2 years. He had no prior law enforcement experience. I sent him through the academy. Matter of fact, several of his classmates went, and he's not out of the woods, as the doctors have explained to me. You get shot in the head, and the bullet's still lodged. It's a very dangerous time. Obviously the brain is extremely sensitive with bleeding and inflammation and or swelling. It can be fatal. So we're happy to say that the deputy was conscious, was an absolute hero out there, calling in that he had been shot even on the radio. And so it's pretty amazing what he was able to do. I know my undersheriff was immediately sent to the hospital and picked up the family and took him to the hospital. And I would say that he was doing well considering what had just happened to him. But as it's been related to me, he's not out of the woods. This is a very serious injury that he sustained.
Can you please explain, just so we know, the exact location of these pictures? You said Riverside, I think, for the one, but what's the intersection there?
This is 10th and Riverside.
Okay, and what's the first one?
10th and Riverside.
Okay, are they
I
all?
think all three are 10th and
Okay,
Riverside.
just different angles.
Yes.
Okay.
This has to be a pretty hard time being in law enforcement just with everything that has happened. And so for the, people that are with the sheriff's office and TV, can you take me through, what you guys are going through and how hard this is going to be?
Well, I'll say from my perspective, the events, have been talked about that occurred in Minnesota, and I can tell you that every chief of police and myself have spoken out against what occurred in Minnesota and how horrific it was and unjust it was. But it occurred in Minnesota. It did not occur locally. Unfortunately, those events have been brought into our county and in many other counties, and the treatment for law enforcement by some people has been horrendous. To have people accuse, local law enforcement of racism, the signs that have been said and used in various protests have been very hard on the deputies and police officers. But I can tell you that I've been to near. We support their right to do that. We wanted to do it in a safe manner. In some cases of protests, the protesters have been extremely peaceful and extremely willing to cooperate with us to ensure their safety. Some have been more challenging than others and not so cooperative, but it's been hard on the police officers. I mean, they've been generally, I can tell you from my department, because we've had to provide deputies all over the county, we've pretty much been on an 8-day work week, and we see no end in sight. So they've been working a lot. We're trying to keep them well rested. We're trying to remind them that the community, does support them. But this is a hard message to hear when it didn't occur here. And unfortunately, it's been brought here, and along with a lot of fear. I mean, you see what's happening nationally. You see the riots. You see the looting. You see the acts of violence occurring. And not only just to law enforcement, but to other people. There's naturally fear as a result of that. So trying to calm the community has been our goal, and I think our law enforcement officers in this county have been absolutely amazing considering what they've had to deal with, and really no reason for them to be treated that way.
Sheriff, you said the FBI is involved?
Yes.
Anybody here from the FBI?
Yes, sir.
Can we ask you a quick question?
Sure. Good afternoon, Assistant Special Agent in Charge, Akil Davis, Los Angeles FBI. What questions can I answer for you?
What role is the FBI playing in this investigation?
We're supporting SLO County Sheriffs as well as Paso Robles Police Department in any crime scene processing or any investigative needs that they may have. Make any request through the sheriff or the chief.
You have your hands fully on the Central Coast. You have a bunch of agents up in the Santa Cruz Mountains investigating that one as well.
That is true. So our entire Santa Maria office is here in a support capacity, helping out any way we can. Any other questions?
In one day.
Yeah, I mean, we're a great community. We are a tourist community in a lot of ways. I mean, Paso Robles, I failed to recognize that the mayor of Paso Robles, Steve Martin, is here. I can tell you that, people vacation here. There's people that live here and the people that come here to enjoy the Central Coast. And we do have a very safe community, very low crime rate. When things bad or happen that are bad, it becomes even more concerning for our local population. So it is unusual to have something like this. And quite honestly, it's disappointing. It truly is disappointing. I mean, when you're trying, to provide the best possible service and safety, and something like this happens, we lost an innocent person today. We have a deputy sheriff that's in serious condition with a significant injury, and it's disappointing. It's disappointing that these types of things are occurring all over the nation, but when they're in your own backyard and you have such an amazing county and really amazing group of citizens in this county that are supportive, it's even more troubling and worrisome for them, for their safety. So, trying to ease their concerns, their fear is a challenge. But, you know, as I have said before, you know, the reality is when you bring an event that happened in another area into your community, you know, anything can happen because emotions are high. And it's not to discount the message in those other communities and even in ours. There's always something more we can do to fight, you know, racism and other things. But, you know, we've lost innocent police officers already in this. One in Oakland, one, Santa Cruz deputy, one in New York City executed for no good reason, and it's troubling and it's concerning to the citizens. So hopefully we are going to catch this person. I should say that first. We are going to catch this person. As Chief Lewis said, this person is best to turn himself in and or. Okay. Well, that is all we have. If there's no more questions, thank you for coming. I appreciate it.
And will the suspect photo be released via email?
Right there, and by email.